Hey guys, what's up? This is What the Tech, and this is Google's Pixel 4a. Their $349 answer to whether or not you need a $1,000 smartphone. Now let's get this ball rolling on just design first. How else can we start this without obviously looking at the front of the phone? The front of the device first greets us with a nice tall 5.1-inch OLED display with a hole punch in the upper corner. Now yes, it does have a fair-sized bezel flanking all sides of the device, but it's still pretty modern looking given the price point again at $349. It looks like it's absolutely eons ahead of the design department when compared to other frequently cited competitors on the Apple-y side of things. Moving to the sides of the phone, we have both the power button and the volume buttons housed on one side of the device, with the entirety of the other side left bare. Of course, the power button itself is a bright Tiffany teal color. It stands out from the device, and that's just on point for the Pixel phones. Now moving on to the back of the phone, it reminds us of its competitive price point, with the full unibody plastic design coming in just one color that Google enthusiastically calls just black. Also on the back is a rear-mounted fingerprint sensor, which is really fast and accurate, placed a bit above the center of the device, which I can appreciate for ergonomic and human-focused design. Moving up north, we have a deceptively designed camera bump that looks like it would have multiple camera modules inside of it, but fact is, it just has one 12 megapixel shooter. I suspect Google chose this route for aesthetic purposes because it may be ingrained on customers that this is what a smartphone ought to look like now. I agree with them personally. On aesthetics front, it does look good. Now moving into the I/O, we have on the bottom one USB-C port flanked by rear firing speakers, and up top we have a 3.5mm headphone jack. And squeezed into the display and bezel, we have an amplified earpiece. It warms my soul to see a headphone jack still in 2020. Keep up the good fight. Well, at least on your budget line and not your premium devices. All right, now let's move into the realm of specs. The display we looked at earlier is a 5.81-inch OLED panel with a single hole punch, coming in at 1080 by 2340p with a pixel density of 443 ppi, making it plenty sharp. Now the phone itself weighs 144 grams, or about a third of a pound. It has a 3140 mAh battery, 6 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigs of storage, a 12.2 megapixel rear camera, 8 megapixel front facing camera, no wireless charging, and it's all powered by the Qualcomm Snapdragon 730G processor. Now I'm sorry for making you guys wait this long to talk about the cameras, but if you like the Pixel 4 in the photography department like I did, you're not going to be surprised that this is a really good shooter. The camera itself is the same wide-angle 12 megapixel shooter we found in the Pixel 4, and honestly, it does just as well. Even though we're starting to see phone manufacturers start pumping up the megapixel counts again, photo processing and color science reign supreme here, and Google and Apple just do it so well. Now, comparatively, Google is a bit cooler in tone with more contrast and maybe at times a little too much sharpness, but in my opinion produces the far superior image that is closest to what I actually saw in person. Being a Pixel device, it also has a night mode that, unlike its competitor, the iPhone SE, lacks. Now even though it can produce a good shot in night mode, I noticed that it did kind of stutter or lag now and then, which may be because of the mid-tier processor that it does ship with. At times it does leave me hanging when I just wanted to move on to my next thing. Now moving away from cameras, we're going to talk about day-to-day usage and what I found I liked about it and some hiccups here and there. First and foremost, I want to say that I'm personally a fan of flagship phones, or no, I'm a fan of phones that fit well in the hand, one hand in general, and this phone has been a delight to use in one-handed purposes. No software gimmicks, no tapping or double pressing anywhere to bring the whole UI down. For me, this is the right size device, and I really enjoy that in my day-to-day usage. Now for overall performance, I can say to you guys right now that I didn't experience anything deal-breaking. There were no major issues when I was using the Pixel 4a. My daily usage consisted of reading a lot of news, social media, or infinite scrolling social media apps, picture-centric social media apps that require lots of sending and receiving, and also ordering food for takeout, because that's our pandemic-style economy now. So the Pixel 4a had to keep up with that. And I don't know if it's just me, but I had personally set the bar so low because of the poor reviews of the Pixel 3a that I expected it to chug in every moment. But luckily for the 4a, because my bar was so low, because it didn't stutter or outright crash numerous times, my experience of it was quite delightful. Now, I'm not exactly a mobile gamer. I prefer gaming on either a computer or on my Xbox. And the Snapdragon 730G processor is, well, that G stands for a slant towards gaming. I can't speak to whether or not it feels better in the hand when playing a video game, but I can say it handles Angry Birds like a champ. Now yes, this phone is technically stereo speakers capable because it has a rear firing and amplified earpiece. And when looking at other reviews, they tend to rave about the fact that it does have stereo speakers, but I'm not exactly too impressed by it. For me, it wasn't that fine at all. And again, I have to remind everyone, it is a $349 price point, so I'm not gonna harp on this for too long. But the earpiece was not so light, but it was light enough where you could distinguish that one side was definitely louder than the other when watching stereo content. So generally, I either just plugged in my wired headphones or used Bluetooth headphones to complete those chores, because this isn't gonna fill a room or even close to a room. Let's see, what else is there? There's no wireless charging. I don't really care about no wireless charging. I don't use wireless charging personally. I prefer wired connection because it's still faster, it's more efficient, and it doesn't transfer as much heat into your battery, the battery unit itself, which if you're looking to prolong the life of your battery as long as possible, wireless charging is detrimental to that because it adds unnecessary heat. Oh, and speaking about battery, let's move into battery life. I usually ended the day with around 20% left, sometimes a little lower, sometimes a little higher, but I'd always notice 20%. The battery itself is almost a 3000 milliamp hour battery, which isn't exactly too large or too small. It's about the right size for a phone this size. And looking at the statistics, the main reason why I kept getting 20% was actually surprising. The phone handled my day-to-day very well when I was indoors, particularly when there's lots of air pollution outside or bad air quality. However, once it became safe enough for me to actually venture out and start using this on the outside more for my testing, battery life started taking a sucker punch because the peak brightness of this display is like, I want to say 450-ish, 441 maybe nits of brightness. That wasn't enough to get readability on this phone in sunlight. I often had to crank up the display to its max brightness or just below its max brightness just to be able to use it. Well, use it comfortably. Of course, once you factor that in, my battery life started taking a punch, as I mentioned earlier, and now it started ending at 20% each and every time. So this phone is really great for indoors, and if you think we're gonna be locked inside for a longer period of time, this would be great. And if you're using it outdoors, try to find shade just right. It does what you expect a phone to do, especially in 2020. It does phone calls, takes excellent pictures, you can look at apps, you can message your friends, if you have any still. This, I can't complain much about it. Also, I didn't know where to put this in the video, but one last note. The haptic feedback on this is really excellent. Now, Android, unlike iOS, doesn't use haptic feedback or vibrations as often as Apple does in iOS. But for the Pixel, I noticed that just by swiping up to go to your app carousel, for example, you get this little bump you feel in your palm, and it's not like a cheap vibration. You guys probably felt cheap vibration motors before. Just grab a phone from a few years ago. It's hard, it's unwieldy, blah, 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 blah. This feels good. And whenever I got a notification in my pocket, it was one of those phones where I don't know how to exactly say this, so I hope you guys understand me on this. When I got a vibrate, when the phone's on silent, the person next to me wouldn't know. It's just me. I think that's great. Nice one, Google. So would I recommend this device? Heck yeah. If you're the kind of person who's into this flavor of Android, the stock Android experience from Google, and want the best bang for your buck device and a kicking camera, I say look nowhere else but the Pixel 4a. Because of the poor reception of the Pixel 3a, its direct predecessor, we aren't entirely sure how well this phone will age. The processor that this comes with, the Snapdragon 730G, was the mid-tier processor for last year. Because we're in 2020 now, there isn't a new iteration to take it up, and Google isn't known for picking up new processors at the beginning of the year anyways, to get it near the end of the year, for whatever reason. Having said that, for $50 more, if you were inclined to go to Apple-y things, you could get an iPhone SE, which has their latest and greatest, most powerful processor, the A14. I can say with certainty that that's going to be supported for 5 years down the road. This will not be supported for 5 years. The Pixel promise is 3 years. And you know what? This might go into a rant. I'm gonna save that rant. Let me finish this thought train first. I can't guarantee you this will last more than 3 years. And the consumer trends are indicating that people are holding onto their phones longer. Now yes, this is not an expensive phone, but people don't like buying phones again and again and again. It's wasteful and it's a waste of money. Being said, I use the iPhone SE, and even though the SE, I can attest, feels smoother, it does look horrendously outdated compared to this device. So it's like Apple and Google are making RPG characters and they put all their customization points into one category and ignore the others. And that's what we have here. The Pixel 4a and then Apple's iPhone SE. Okay, now back to that last minute gripe I had earlier that I'm gonna share. Google has the opportunity here to be the model Android vendor, and they make Android. They make Pixel devices. You would think that they could apply their huge war chest to promise to consumers 5 years of software and security support for every Pixel device. They might even be able to beat the competition and do 6 years. Why don't they do that? It's their own device. Don't they want to make it look good? Don't they want to have people switching over from iOS to Android to know that their device will last them throughout high school, college, a bit into their career, until it's time to get a new phone and show off? Now, I have a hunch, honestly, personally, between me and you, that the reason why Google doesn't do this is not because, it's not like they don't want to. People know that, I think Google knows that one of the main things people don't like about Android, or not don't like, but one thing people really prefer about iOS is that Apple supports its devices for a long period of time. It's just that if Google does this, it's gonna piss off its vendors, its partner OEMs, and they're gonna go, hey, why are you doing this? You're making us look bad. So Google has to move the entire Android industry or its partners to accept that they're gonna have to support the phones for a longer period of time, which is inherently hard given the amount of devices they produce. This isn't going to be easy, but Google could do it first if it's willing to ruffle some feathers, so to say. But rant aside, this phone, 3 years, what Google offers of dedicated support, not dedicated, but of software and security support is fine. 5 years would be excellent. And honestly, that's what this phone is. It's fine. And perhaps when you factor in the price point, you can walk away saying, it's pretty excellent. This is What the Tech. Hope you guys liked the video. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace. Boom.